Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look here today at QNT. And QNT is referred to as Quant, and it is an interesting coin, the way in which it's progressing. It's doing very well. I get a lot of requests for this one too. It's actually a lot bigger than I expected it to be. So thank you to my community members and my patrons for recommending I cover this. Now moving forward, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should do your own research, and just know I have years of trading experience, and my goal is to help make you more of an effective trader so you can trade for a lifetime instead of just for one day. Now, if you want to go on autopilot, of course, I share all of my trades with my patrons. Link in the description below there. I send usually in the range of 2 to 4 signals per week, and I'm hovering around 75% success rate at this point. Now, moving forward, also recommend you definitely check out my Telegram community. Good group of folks there. You can learn a lot free of charge. There's no cost there, of course. Just be a fly on the wall, learn what you can. That's why we're there. So thank you so much again for joining me here today. We'll take a look at the charts here next. Let's get to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at QNT, which is Quant. Now, I've covered this before, of course, and I'm covering it again because my community asked me to, so thank you very much for the recommendation. Now, moving forward, of course, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, get a baseline of the market so I know exactly what's going on before we go ahead and dive deeper into the altcoins that we look at. All right, so first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin. Also, bear in mind this is TradingView desktop application. I recommend any of the paid versions just because they do give you more indicators present, and sometimes you need more than just two, which is the basic default figure that they give you. But that being said, I recommend utilizing that. I do have a link in the description below for a discount. I believe it provides you with a free month trial membership. Check that out in your own time. But right now we're looking at the 4-hour chart. And what we do is we enable our simple moving averages, and looking at the 50, that is kind of rising and increasing right with this ascending triangle pattern that I drew before. Furthermore, we also have the 200-day simple moving average. The bottom line here is that the price is above both. So at this point in time, they're both working at support levels, whereas the 50 is likely going to intersect with the price action in the I would say in the next couple of days, maybe even I would say the next week, depending on the price action, right? So the price continues to go up, of course, it won't catch up quickly, but it is essentially ascending as well as this line here. So it's kind of helped pushing the price up, if you will. And I drew this ascending triangle before to kind of show that we always typically have a breakout. It definitely broke out the last time I predicted this, but more importantly, there's a chance it could also occur again. So we can just go ahead and extend this up a little bit further and see. Pay attention to that, kind of see how that works out. There's a decent chance it'll continue over, and either it'll try to reject and bounce off of 40,500 and then project upwards, or perhaps even the inverse too. But this is a pretty strong support level considering how many times it was tested previously. All right. So just bear in mind though too, there is also a support at 41,000 even. That's been tested a good 4 or 5 times so far. So that's also a secondary support here. So all in all, looking pretty good here for Bitcoin. Another thing to note is the fact that we do have, of course, a support level at 30,000 and a previous support at 37,000 if we lose any of these two, right? But I would say the next major milestone for Bitcoin is to surpass 42,500 because that was a previous support and resistance level here when the price was digressing, okay? So that is Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum. Similar scenario here to Ethereum, and I always say that because, of course, Ethereum is basically the ugly stepchild for Bitcoin. I hate to put it that way, but it's not performing as strong as Bitcoin is, but it's pretty much mirroring it, right? So as you can tell, it's got the similar pattern and the same ascending pattern, so to speak. But the difference is the fact that Bitcoin's up here, as if you compare 1-to-1 ratio, whereas Ethereum's still kind of trailing. So not bad. Definitely in a much better shape than ever before, and as you can see, the price ramped up here recently when Bitcoin didn't. So it has a tendency of going on these bullish runs, but they're usually delayed, right? So it's typically a delay. So if you see Bitcoin increase, just say to 43 or 44,000, then I would say within a day or two after that, Ethereum will likely follow suit. Major support 1725, current supports at 2400. And also a major resistance at 2,900. That'll be the next major milestone, based on the fact that it was tested almost 10 times in the past, roughly about 2 months ago, a month and a half, 2 months ago. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at QNT. Now, we're gonna have slightly limited data just based on the fact that I think it was introduced to Coinbase in June on the 24th, but this still gives us some information on what's going on. In other words, it's doing very well compared to what it's used to, but it was obviously introduced. I believe that was an ICO date. Correct me if I'm wrong, but just based on the technicals alone here, if that was an ICO date, it was a tough open because of the fact that June 24th was just a bad day in general for Bitcoin. And it's had a lot of sideways action. So it makes sense that it's ramping up right now because of the fact that it's so used to being held down that it has to, right? And as we can see, we're up over on the RSI. So extremely overextended. When you see an RSI closer to 80 on the one-day chart, that's a firm indication that it's overbought and that could essentially retrace. And oftentimes, too, a retracement is normal in this situation. I mean, as you can see, we've got a staircase pattern, which is fantastic. But what we need to do is see some sideways action for a little while and then see if QNT will take off again. I would prefer that anyways. As far as investing in this, I wouldn't feel comfortable if the price were just to continue to increase and just throw my money in there. I like to see sideways action for at least 2 or 3 days after a large increase. Because if you look at this increase here, that's almost 40% in a 24-hour period. It's retracing already. It's about 40% down from its original starting point. And commonly, most retracements occur anywhere between 40 to 60% of its original starting point. So I would say on average, if we're just going to go with the law of averages here, take 50% of this, and we're going to go ahead and let's do this instead. This is about 50%. This is a potential support level, right? If the price were to retrace and bounce. That's kind of just the common way in which it works. All right, so that's just something to note on the one-day chart. 4-hour chart does give us some moving averages, which is nice, and we're above both. Pretty standard for the situation. RSI is overextended as well, but it's not as crazy as the one-day chart. So this is a good indication of the fact that we should see some sideways action for a little while, especially with these candlesticks here. If we take a look at this, I mean, these candles, I mean, look at that bearish harami. That signals that there's likely with an inverted hammer pattern going to be a reversal. It may not be significant, right? It could just go sideways for a little while, which I hope. But if it doesn't, just bear in mind that is usually an indication of a turnaround or a price reversal. Got a convergence on the MACD at approximately 1700 on the 31st. I'm going to mark that really quick. Obviously this guy here. And I like to just kind of see how that coincides with the 1-hour chart for the Ichimoku cloud. And if you're new to the channel, Ichimoku cloud is awesome because it really just tells you if the price is above the cloud, it's considered a buy signal. When it's below, it's considered a sell signal. So right here would have been a good indication of a buy signal according to the cloud. And obviously, it converged no less than 4 to 8 hours later on the MACD on the 4-hour chart. So that kind of tells us this whole time frame here would have been an awesome time frame to buy. And what would that have been? Just say hypothetically you bought in there now, and the price currently, you would have a 23% gain if you exited your position right now. Again, hindsight's 20/20, of course, but if you can pay attention to the MACD and kind of keep scanning for 1-hour charts on the Ichimoku cloud, it might be a good consideration for a swing setup, right? So that's kind of the idea there. Furthermore, let's go ahead and take a look at the TD sequential, and we'll see if we have any exhaustion. And yeah, we do. As you can see here, we've got the, take a look at this here. So you see how it counts from 1 to 9. As soon as it hits a 9, it starts retracing. It's pretty common setup because of the fact that most good bull runs, they last somewhere in the range of 8 to 12 hours. And if you look for a 9, that's kind of the trigger to let you know that there's going to be a retracement soon because it's considered reaching exhaustion, right? And the reason why, and we already marked this earlier, is that at this point, this 9th candlestick, it hit 37% of its original starting point 9 hours later. That's a large standard deviation. It has to come back down. So that's kind of what's going on there. Furthermore, on the 15-minute chart, let's go ahead and take a look here. And as you can kind of see, the price is bouncing off this potential support level. I just kind of drew in there randomly. It's $160, but as you can kind of see, interesting coincidence, there's major support and resistance levels here. And I bet if you were to throw on the, the Fibonacci retracement tool, that would line up with one of those tools, right? So just keep in mind, that's kind of how things work. There are laws of averages when it comes to trading. So I'd venture to guess moving forward, 159, just say 160 is a pretty strong support. We should see the price come down, either bounce off that and increase, or just continue to go sideways and then either increase or decrease from there. Now there's no specific, I haven't seen any signs here so far that it's going to retrace and come below this point. But again, it really depends on what happens with the market. If Bitcoin continues to go sideways, then we'll see how QNT responds, because QNT could be one of those coins that essentially it moves independent of Bitcoin completely. We don't have enough data to understand that in this chart, but that's kind of the general consensus. Either way, moving on to the 15-minute chart here with the EMA and VWAP indications. Now I provide this to my patrons, of course, upon request, and this is an indications that I have set up where it just combines my two favorite indicators. I have the EMA 15 and the VWAP. The VWAP is the volume weighted average price. That's this blue line here, kind of working as a consistent support and resistance level. As you can see, it's kind of working concurrent with that line that I drew earlier. It's about 162. So based on the last 24 hours of volume, the VWAP is basically telling us that we have, what, I don't know, somewhere in the range of $1.63 in cost. That's what the price should be. Okay, so that's a current support. The EMA is the exponential moving average. I use the EMAs on the shorter time frames. It makes more sense because it responds quicker to price action. And the 15 is my favorite because it's just splitting the difference between the 9 and the 20. So taking that average essentially tells us that we're in a bullish trend, but right now we are in consolidation, right? So previously bullish. As you can see, the price bounces off of EMA, 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 and then we lost EMA here, right? So in other words, EMA went down below, or the price went below the EMA line, and it's been jumping up and down between there. So that basically tells us that we're in a consolidation period right now, which is very standard for the situation. All right, so just keep that in mind. Furthermore, also note that what we're looking at here, we want to be able to find a good entry. So let me just kind of give you a quick idea of what a good entry point would look like, because a lot of times you want to wait for confirmation, right? And for me, confirmation is just waiting for the price to be above EMA and VWAP. Both of these two green candles are over EMA and VWAP. So this would be a consideration for a buy signal, because what, you have one green candle, two green candles, you take your position and continue to ride it out. And the reason why that works is because the fact that you're over the EMA line and the VWAP. So you're above support and you're on the same direction or moving in the same direction as the bulls are, because the EMA line kind of tells us that, hey, the bulls are in control. It's bouncing off this line, bouncing off this line. It's continuing to ascend upwards, right? So those are just little things that I look at, and in my signal group that I provide to my patrons, I share my signals with all of my patrons there. And in that sense, what I do is I basically just utilize everything we just learned here today to find good entry points. And right now we're hovering at about 75%. Usually it's 80, but this last month with all the indecision in the market, it kind of caused some strange results. But generally speaking, you can be very successful if you just look at the big picture and work your way down. Remember, on the 4-hour chart, you utilize the MACD, right? That's very important. 1-hour chart, Ichimoku Cloud, maybe TD sequential. Then on the 15, always use VWAP and EMA to kind of ensure that you're on the right side of the scale. If you're going short, you want to be on the bottom. If you're going long, you want to be on the top. It's that simple, that straightforward. But if you want to go on autopilot and just essentially receive signals as I take entry in the market, I share that with my patrons. Link in the description below. In fact, today is the best day to register for that because it is the first of the month, of course, and you actually have the full month's benefit, of course. So reference that in your own time, of course. But I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you have a good rest of your day. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.